Welcome to the free personal finance lessons. This is part of a series of free lessons on how to manage your personal finances here in Kenya. If you haven't already, watch the introduction video lesson so that you can get context for this lesson. So one of the most important things that you can do for your money is to create a personal net worth tracker. I'm going to cover this over the next few lessons, with today's lessons focusing on getting your Kenya shillings right. So what you're seeing here is how I've set up my money. As you can see, there's various sections, but today we're covering the liquidity section. You will note I have 3 bank accounts. The Standard account has both a current account and a savings account. The Stanbic account has 3 sub-accounts, a current and 2 savings accounts, one for expenses, one for vacations. We'll talk about that in a few. And then my equity bank, maybe I should tell you that story. See, equity, don't get me wrong, it has a place in my account setup, but man, do I have a story about them. First got into equity because the student account makes a lot of sense. This was especially so because I was in a bush campus in the middle of Taita Taveta County. Those days, we didn't have fancy online banking and M-Pesa to bank and so on. And thus, equity with their wide branch network was perfect for a student, especially because their student account didn't incur any charges. But I remember one day I wanted to withdraw money. This was after I started working, maybe 2 or 3 months after I got hired, so I didn't have a chance to change my account. And I remember going to withdraw cash, and there was a long line, and literally the person was in front of me was holding a rabbit, and the one behind me a chicken. And I was like, Equity is such a member bank, and I love it for that, but maybe that's the last time I wait in such a long line. And the next week I opened my account with Standard Chartered. As I said, equity has a place in my bank account setup, and I'll cover that in a few. But first, let me explain why you should open a bank account that's the same as what your employer banks with. The first reason is obviously money gets to you quicker. Sometimes people with different bank accounts with the employer wait for as much as 3 days to get the salary in their account. Not sure if this is still the case, but definitely was the case for me when I used to have a different bank to my employer. Secondly, employers normally negotiate deals with their banks for the benefit of their employees. Such include discounts, preferential loan rates, among others. So there's an incentive for you to move to the same bank as your employer in such a case. Finally, since your salary account is linked to your employer and thus money is deposited quicker, you can set up automations to help you with recurring expenses or investments. That ensures you don't need any discipline with your financial goals, as you just need to set up with the automations and the system does the rest for you. In future video lessons, I'll show you how I automate my finances here in Kenya. That way you can copy a system that has been tried and tested here in Kenya. So earlier, I'd mentioned that equity has a place in my account setup. I think every Kenyan should have an account with either Co-op, Equity, or KCB. The reason for this is since these are the top 3 banks in Kenya in terms of market share, there's a big chance that people you deal with will bank with one of them. This is important because, as highlighted above, when you share the same bank with the person you are dealing with, that means sending money to them is free. That's quite important because if you take a bank charge and compound it over time, what looks like a small amount every now and then, when you send money, especially with M-Pesa, will be a big amount if it's saved and compounded over a long period of time. In the interest of keeping this video short, I'll leave a link in the description or in the pinned comment that goes into detail on why you should aim to eliminate, if not minimize, the cost of transacting in Kenya. Now, this doesn't mean I'm endorsing these 3 banks. In fact, their strength in terms of big customer numbers is often their weakness. My personal experience has been I get better customer service out of these 3 banks. Sometimes actually better and cheaper, as in the case of Standard Chartered and Stanbic. But that's a lesson for another day in terms of how to choose your bank. That said, the 3 have a place in your account setup. The way to choose between them is to analyze your last 3 or 6 months bank statement and identify who you transact with frequently. If you find that most of those transactions are with one of these 3, then you want to choose that bank so that you can save on the cost of transacting. As highlighted earlier, I have 3 sub-accounts with Stanbic Bank. This is actually an old setup before I learned about money market funds that I would have done differently if I knew what I know now. That actually is the topic for the next lesson. Remember, if you have any questions or would like to appreciate the free lessons, leave a comment below. Set time in my day to engage with people in the comment section. I'm excited for the insights you get for free in the next lesson. So, see you in the next one, and here's your financial freedom.